given the command, you can have anything you want in this whole garden, except for this one tree. And we oftentimes make the mistake of saying it's the tree of knowledge, because God doesn't want us to know stuff. No, that's not what it is. It's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, meaning that when you're given a specific directive, do not do this one thing. This whole world's available to you. Just don't do this one thing. As soon as you do that one thing in rebellion, now you know evil. And it's a great story because what's missing from this whole part of the story? Adam. He's the guy who asked for her in the first place. And then he got her, and where was he? I don't know. He wasn't there. Because the story doesn't say that it doesn't say that the snake approached Adam and Eve, and she's having a full-on conversation with this snake. And even if he's there, he's not there to protect her. He's not there to talk to the snake. He's not there to cast the snake away. He's doing something. He's not paying attention to her. Duh. How do a lot of relationships fall apart? Most relationships fall apart because you don't pay attention to the person that you asked for. People will sit there and pray and cry and weep and wish and see other people in public. Oh, I just wish I could find someone. And then when they do, their attention is elsewhere. Who else can I find? What else can I find? What else now distracts me? And that's a really important lesson, because I want you guys to see this, because this is really important if you plan to have kids someday. God creates a perfect environment, a perfect garden, a perfect plan. There's no evil. We're going to live forever. But there was a serpent in the garden. There are serpents in the garden. No matter how you build your life up, no matter how good it is, no matter how strong you fortify your life, there are serpents in the garden. And if you plan to have children someday, understand that you can build a house for them, you can build an environment for them, you can build a structure for them, you can do everything right. There's always serpents in the garden. Why do I talk to you the way I do? Because there's serpents in the garden. Serpents are going to get in. Snakes are going to get in no matter what you do. You can't stop it. All I can do, all that any teacher can do, and all that you can do for yourself is prepare yourself to live in a world where there are serpents. So that when the serpent approaches and says, "So, you can eat of any fruit, huh?" Nope, any fruit except for that one. Did he really say that? Because you know why though? Because the day you eat that, you'll be just like him. That's not what he said. No, you're lying. You're manipulating language. You're using language. In other words, you can prepare yourself and prepare your kids for the serpents because they're there. Nothing you can do about that. But what you can do is prepare yourself. So, prepare yourself. So what is it that makes the devil the devil?
Like, so scary or just like completely?
No, because we talk about like the character of God. If I were to ask us, what is God like? We would say stuff like, he's omnipotent, and he's all powerful.
I don't know. I've never met him.
Right, I've never met him either. But I'm saying these are the kinds of things that we would say. You might say he's omniscient. He knows everything. And then we'd say he's omnibenevolent. He's all-loving. The first two are pretty straightforward. Those are easy. Omnipotent, can do anything. Now, is it true that an omnipotent being can do anything? Well, no, of course not. Could God make a square circle? Yeah, it's a violation of the definition. Can God make a rock that's so big that he can't lift it?
Not by his own definition.
It would make sense, because if he could make the rock that was so big he couldn't lift it, then he couldn't do anything. And then he'd be making something that's greater than himself. But if he can't make the rock, then that means he can't do anything. So there are certain limitations, maybe logical limitations. But it's that last one, omniscient, that's pretty straightforward too. He knows everything, all wise. It's that last one though, the omnibenevolent, that's so difficult, because he's all loving. And if that's the case, that God is all loving, then that means you have to look at the world and say that all things work together for good with those who love God and are called together for his purposes. Meaning that even the Holocaust somehow worked out for good. No matter how evil something is, it works out for good. So by that, then we understand that there's this kind of working definition of what it is for God to be God. And for God to be acknowledged to be God, then something has to happen, which is that, how about this? In order for you to be called mom or dad, what has to happen? Yeah, you have to have kids. You have to create kids. So for God to be acknowledged as God, what has to happen? What's that? He has to create. We've talked about that before, haven't we? There are these two types of people in the world. You have gods and demons, gods and devils. We've talked about that, haven't we? Now, what is it for God to be God, therefore? Well, for God to be God, he has to create. That seems to be the one big thing that separates God apart from everything else. And so therefore, we ask the question, what is it for the devil to be the devil? And so what does the devil do? If God creates, what does the devil do? Destroys and tears down. And you're going to find that these two psychological profiles exist in the world. We have people who create, and then we have people who destroy. And to create also means to take something that presently exists and distort it, to change it, to make it into something different from what it was intended for. Like, if you remember, it's a real shame that we don't study the Bible more. We freak out as soon as we mention religion. People are like, oh my God, it's religion, you can't talk about that. Shut up. It's the foundational document of all of Western civilization. It's the most influential book that's ever been written. And it's so strange to me that we sit here and go, you can't talk about that. Or we say, I don't want to hear about it. Well, why not? You like to hear about fairy tales all the time, don't you? Why is it that there's just this one that terrifies us? And that should stand out to us. If there's this one book that absolutely terrifies us. Communism is responsible for the death of over 100 million people in the 20th century alone. If there's any book that should terrify us, shouldn't it be the Communist Manifesto? And yet it'll be, for those of you guys who go to college next year, it will probably be on your Introduction to Political Science reading list. It's just a book about this big. It's not much. It's amazing how you can actually add up and go, wow, that comes out to about, 10 million bodies per page. And yet for some reason we don't bat an eye at reading that one thing. There's almost no other book in the world that, some of you will take political science and you'll be assigned Mein Kampf, Hitler's autobiography. You'll read that in college. And for some reason, we'll sit there and go, well, yeah, because you have to understand. But for some reason, when we talk about the Bible or the Quran or the Upanishads, those are the things that terrify us. And I can't help but wonder if it's because of this idea that there are gods and devils, those who create, those who destroy, those who create, those who take what presently exists and manipulate it to make it into something far worse. That's the first story of the Bible. It begins, the whole thing says, in the beginning. So before anything even existed, God created the heavens and the earth. God created, that's what it is to be God. And it doesn't take long. He creates the whole universe. He creates this perfect garden. He creates this guy, Adam, and then we're told from the very beginning, he's the first human being, and he's never meant to die. He lives in a perfect garden. There are animals there. Apparently all the animals are vegetarian because nothing dies, which means that they don't eat each other. And that means they don't have to have, they don't eat each other. So that means they're probably eating fruit and vegetables, which is weird. It doesn't tell us what animals are there, but that'd be strange. A lion who eats lettuce, although my cat does eat lettuce. Theodore, he's a very healthy boy. When I make salads, I'll walk in the kitchen and he's standing up on top of the counter eating the lettuce out of my bowl. I put mushrooms and lettuce, and he likes the green one, like his daddy. He likes the green. He picks it up, and if I go, Theodore, what are you? He grabs it and he runs away with the lettuce. And then he comes back for more. I've never seen a cat eat lettuce before, so maybe the Garden of Eden can exist. So there's nothing that dies in the Garden of Eden, and then Adam's walking around, he's bored, and he's just like, God's like, what's wrong? He's like, it's kind of lonely. Can you make somebody for me to hang out with? And God's like, yeah, okay. So he makes Eve. Why? Because he recognizes that there's part that no matter how self-sufficient, and even if you have everything, if you're missing the other half of yourself, then that feels like you have nothing. And so he makes the other half, they combine, and then they become one. And then they're given the command, you can have anything you want in this whole garden, except for this one tree. And we oftentimes make the mistake of saying it's the tree of knowledge because God doesn't want us to know stuff. No, that's not what it is. It's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Meaning that when you're given a specific directive, do not do this one thing. This whole world's available to you. Just don't do this one thing. As soon as you do that one thing in rebellion, now you know evil. You knew good before because you did it. And this is where this whole genesis of the idea of, well, in order to appreciate the good times, you have to have the bad times. And then we scratch our chins and we frown and go, yeah, you have to have the bad times. I don't get that, and that makes no sense to me. You can't appreciate a roller coaster ride unless you have a car crash. Really? Are any of us really like that? All it does, if anything, the good times make the bad times worse because they give us a point of comparison. Things were so much better then. But anyway, so they're told they can eat of any of the trees except for this one. And then there's this interesting scene where it says that Eve is kind of walking through the garden and she's approached by the serpent. The story says that at this time the serpent had legs, which is weird. The serpent has legs and walks up and is just like, hey, cool garden you got here. It says, so God said you can eat of any of these trees, huh? Any of these trees. Did God say that? No. God said any of these trees except for. So the first thing that we find is a lie of omission. He only reports half of the truth. God said you can eat of any of these trees, period. No, the period doesn't stop there. Except for that one. So if you ever ask yourself, is it really lying if I don't tell the whole truth? Yes, it's lying. We all know that it is, because we all know that none of us would want only half the truth. We all want the whole sentence, not half of it. And so when someone omits something, it's always done for a purpose. So what's just happened? There's a sentence, there's a statement, it's now been destroyed. That's what the devil does. He destroys, he manipulates, he takes away from what presently exists. And so Eve rightly says, no, he didn't say that. He said we can eat of any tree except for that one. And then the devil says, come on, did he really say that? God, do you really believe this stuff that people believe? Come on, did God really, this guy in the sky, come down with a beard and talk to you? Do you really believe any of that stuff? And Eve says, yeah, he said that. That's the second form of a lie, to just deny it outright. And what I oftentimes find is that people who accuse other people of things, oftentimes, are actually doing the thing themselves. That's why they're so familiar with it. And then the devil says, okay, fine. He said it. But you know what? You know why he said it, though. Because he knows that in the day that you eat of that fruit, you will become a God like him. Knowing good, Is that true? You become like God. That part is true. But how do you become like him? You become like God because now you know good and evil. Before you only knew good. Now you know evil. And now you carry the burden of what you know. This is a metaphor for growing up as well. As you grow up, you carry a burden of the world. If any of you guys have little nieces, nephews, brothers, sisters, cousins who are 2 years old, 3 years old, when they're playing, do they ever stop and just stare at the ground and you're like, why are you, what's wrong? It's just what's happening in Ukraine right now. Anyway, then they go back to playing because the floor is lava? No, they have no concept of that until they get on the internet and everything goes to shit after that. No, because you can go through life innocent and happy and joyful, and it becomes the awareness of evil. And by the way, this is the story that we learn about the Buddha as well. That the Buddha grows up in a pleasure dome. His father is a king, tries to keep him away from all evil. Doesn't want him to know about death. Doesn't want him to know about suffering. So he grows up thinking that everything is perfect. In his father's court, whenever someone is sick or dying, they're removed from the sight of Siddhartha because he doesn't want him to know about that stuff. And then one day, just by stupid chance, he comes across a man who's dying. He's sick and dying. And he's like, this is evil. This is what's happening here, because he's never experienced that before. So he sets out to go out into the world to find out what the world is really like. He becomes aware of he already knew good. He just didn't know that he knew it, because that's an important lesson as well. You don't know what you don't know. And then he becomes aware of evil, so he now knows that he doesn't know about evil. So he goes out to learn about it. Some of you will click on gore videos because now you know about death. Now you want to see what it looks like. And then you see what it looks like, and there's something that's for some people very alluring. Just stay off the subways in New York. Somebody remind me about that after this. And so, as soon as all that Eve hears, though, is, so I'm going to become like God? I'm going to become all powerful? He never said that. He just said, you're going to become like God. And he just wasn't specific in what way. And so, have any of you guys ever seen the movie, I think it's called Bedeviled, or I think it's called Bedazzled, something like that? It's about a guy who meets the devil and gets, it's kind of like a genie thing where he gets wishes. He gets, I think, 7 wishes. And every time he makes a wish, the devil screws with him in some way. So for example, there's a woman he's in love with, and he finds out that she likes really sensitive men. I'm sorry, well, we'll start with the sensitive men anyway. So he finds out that he overhears her, and she's like, I like sensitive men. So he asks the devil, I want you to make me the most sensitive man in the world. And so she's like, okay. He goes, wait, emotionally sensitive. And she's like, oh, I was gonna have some fun with that one, because you make him really sensitive. And then he's so sensitive that he's like crying because he sees a sunrise, and he's like playing guitar on the beach with her, and everything about him is so sensitive that she's just annoyed by him because he's not a man. He's just a sniveling little ball of emotions. And she gets annoyed with him. Some dude comes over and like kicks sand on the guy and then takes the girl away, and he's like, why are you leaving with him? And she's basically just like, because he's a man and you're not. So he's like, oh. Then he asks, he knows that she likes really smart men. So he asks the devil, okay, make me the smartest man in the world. Make me a playwright, famous playwright. So she goes, okay. So she turns him into a very famous playwright where he's witty, he's funny, he's smart. And then she also made him gay. So now he has no interest in her. So there's always these little tricks that he plays, because what do you expect? You're making a deal with the devil. So when the devil says to her, you'll become like God, then he just doesn't tell her exactly how. So they eat of the fruit. And it's a great story, because what's missing from this whole part of the story? Adam. He's the guy who asked for her in the first place. And then he got her, and where was he? I don't know. He wasn't there. Because the story doesn't say that it doesn't say that the snake approached Adam and Eve, and she's having a full-on conversation with the snake. And even if he's there, he's not there to protect her. He's not there to talk to the snake. He's not there to cast the snake away. He's doing something. He's not paying attention to her. Duh. How do a lot of relationships fall apart? Most relationships fall apart because you don't pay attention to the person that you asked for. People will sit there and pray and cry and weep and wish and see other people in public. Oh, I just wish I could find someone. And then when they do, their attention is elsewhere. Who else can I find? What else can I find? What else now distracts me? And what's the result of that? Well, it's the fall. If he had been doing what he asked for this, if he had taken care of the thing he had asked for, the relationship would not only have flourished, but the whole world literally wouldn't have fallen apart as it did. So then she eats the fruit. And what does she immediately do? Scales fall from her eyes. Now she knows evil. And she's like, oh my gosh, this was bad. This was really bad. And she goes, Adam, you gotta try this. Because misery loves company. And Adam, because Adam's a man, he's like, okay. He tries it. And then all of a sudden the scales fall from his eyes. And then they hear God walking. Like, oh, we have to hide, because they realize that they're naked. Why does that matter? Because that's a sign of vulnerability. They're now vulnerable. Why? Because before they were not vulnerable to anything. There were no animals that were going to kill them. There was no death. So they could walk around naked. They didn't even realize that they were vulnerable. Along with the awareness of evil is an awareness of your vulnerability, your mortality, the fact that you're going to die. So they become completely aware now of evil. And so they hide. They've never had a reason to hide before. These are the first people in history to ever hide. And then they hide. And God's walking through the garden, and he's like, Adam, where'd you go? Does God know where Adam is? Yeah, of course he does. But he's like, oh, dude, when you're a little kid and you've got chocolate on your face, and your mom asks you, did you eat the chocolate? Does your mom know you ate the chocolate? Oh shit, fine. You're your age right now, and your mom asks you, where were you yesterday? Does your mom know where you were? Moms know everything. They just don't tell you that they know everything. We think that they don't. And then years later we find out. You'll be like in your late 20s having coffee with your mom or something like that, and you're telling your mom, back in high school, I was doing that, and you didn't even, I never told you, you didn't know. And your mom would sit there and go, I knew. No. If your mom says she doesn't like your friends, you'll understand that someday. And so they hide. God walks through the garden and asks, where are you, Adam? Where'd you go? And he's like, oh, we're hiding behind these bushes. And he's like, why are you hiding? Well, because we're naked. God's like, how did you know? Did you eat of that fruit? And Adam sets the tone for the rest of history. And he says, it was the woman you gave me. It was her fault, not mine. He doesn't even say yes, but. He doesn't even say yes because. He just immediately says, it's the woman you gave me. It's her fault. It's not mine. And then he casts them out of the garden and says, now you know good and evil. Now you're going to have to live according to that. But you see, and then he curses the serpent and says, no more legs for you. Now you got to crawl around on the floor and eat dust. But the point is that all of this stuff, whether you believe it or not, whether you're religious or not, that's not the important thing here. The important thing here is that you can see that it's a deep psychological sketch of humanity. Everything I told you, if it didn't come from the Bible, if it came from a fairy tale or something like that, we'd sit there and go, yeah, that's wise. Wow, when was this thing written? 1920 what? No. Thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. Did anything I tell you sound like it couldn't have happened today? It's because we don't change. We become more like ourselves, not just at an individual level, but at a humanity level. And so what is it that God did? He created. And then what did he do? He creates a human and gives them the task of naming things in the world. To bring things, to bring an understanding of the world, gives us a language to understand the world. What's the purpose of language? To understand the world. It's a mechanism through which we can understand the world and be understood by and in the world. That's why we do this whole language arts thing. When I asked you in the first week of school, why do we bother to do any of this? For a grade, or for a better future. I added in the zombie eyes, but you get the idea. Because we don't even know why we do this. We think it's just for a grade, or it's just because we get a little piece of cheese in 10 weeks. No, sorry, 6 weeks. We get a little piece of cheese, a piece of paper that gives us a chance to go out into the world and get an opportunity. What does the opportunity matter if you can't explain it? If you can't describe it, if you don't belong in that world that you're trying to excel in? You can't excel in the world that you don't feel like you belong in. And so, language can be used for these two things. In the beginning, it says, God created the heavens and the earth. How? By speaking it into existence. And then fast forward and we have a serpent walking around in a garden who speaks, and by speaking, attacks and destroys large parts of that creation. This is what your language can do. You can create or you can destroy. So I'd ask you, where is that devil? Is it in the garden? Yeah. But it's closer to home than even that, isn't it? Any of us not do the things that the devil did? Leave out parts of sentences, manipulate the language, call into question, did the person really say that? Lie about it, and they'll lie about what the intended purpose behind it. We blame the devil for the things that happen in the world, but we don't have to blame the devil, man. We can blame ourselves. 99% of the terrible things that happen in our lives, maybe I can speak to myself, because of the things that we did. It isn't always the world outside, it's how we respond to it. And that's a really important lesson, because I want you guys to see this, because this is really, really, really important if you plan to have kids someday. God creates a perfect environment, a perfect garden, a perfect plan. There's no evil. We're going to live forever. But there was a serpent in the garden. There are serpents in the garden. No matter how you build your life up, no matter how good it is, no matter how strong you fortify your life, there are serpents in the garden. And If you plan to have children someday, understand that you can build a house for them, you can build an environment for them, you can build a structure for them, you can do everything right. It's not that hard. It's difficult, but not that hard. There's always, always, always serpents in the garden. Why do I talk to you the way I do? Because there's serpents in the garden. Serpents are going to get in. Snakes are going to get in no matter what you do. You can't stop it. All I can do, all that any teacher can do, and all that you can do for yourself is prepare yourself to live in a world where there are serpents. So that when the serpent approaches and says, "So, you can eat of any fruit, huh?" "Nope, any fruit except for that one." "Ah, did he really say that?" "Mm-hmm." "Ah, because you know why though? Because the day you eat that, you'll be just like him." That's not what he said. No, you're lying. You're manipulating language. You're using language. In other words, you can prepare yourself and prepare your kids for the serpents because they're there. Nothing you can do about that. But what you can do is prepare yourself. So, prepare yourselves. Questions? Comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? That's the longest talk of the year. That's 26 minutes. Felt it, huh?